All right. Welcome, everyone. Great to have you with us for Webinar Wednesday with FPSA. In a session hosted by SPFA this fall, the discussion really focused on why AI matters and how it's already reshaping how companies operate and how organizations are already starting to adopt it. So today we're going to focus on what that actually looks like in day-to-day work. This discussion is designed to be practical and grounded in real workflows, real operational challenges, and organizational adoption. We'll walk through a few real examples of how companies are approaching AI implementation, where organizations are seeing meaningful impact, and how digital mindset and prompting can improve operational effectiveness across teams. Joining us today is Colin Gerson from Festo, but before I have Colin introduce himself, I do want to note that the Q&A is open in the chat and questions are absolutely encouraged as we talk through this topic. I will do my best to keep up with questions as we go, but if I don't get to something in real time, we will do our best to address any outstanding questions at the end, time permitting. So with that, Colin, can you briefly introduce yourself and talk about the work that you're leading at Festo?
Yeah. Hi, Kristen. It's wonderful to be back with your group. It was a pleasure last time, and I'm really excited to be here today. My name's Colin Gerson. I am the Vice President of IT for Festo. I lead IT for North and South America as part of a global IT organization within Festo. So my responsibility is all things IT in North and South America.
Great. Well, thank you, Colin. And my name is Kristen Putsch. I'll be moderating today's conversation. I am the editor of Dairy Processing Magazine, which is a Sossalin publishing publication. And I've been covering AI in the dairy industry for the past few years. So I'm excited to dive into this topic with you, Colin.
Yeah, it's a very relevant topic, and we have to attack it head on.
Great. All right. So I think a good place to start is the understanding that the real challenge right now isn't access to the AI tools, but that adoption and mindset. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% correct. We read and we study a lot about the different models and which one is smarter or more intelligent than the other, which one has more capabilities. You see in the press and you read a lot about the technological intelligence side of all these different products. But what you don't see a lot is the discussion about adoption in companies and enterprises. How do companies and enterprises keep up with the innovation? How do they truly adopt these things into a company in a pragmatic, safe way? And I think that that is something that is not talked about enough. And I think that would be a great focus today to talk about the adoption side of AI and automation. I want to say automation too, because I do combine them, AI and automation. So it would be great to focus on the adoption aspect of it into the enterprise.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that that is an excellent place to start. So I think, Helen, something that you've been working on at Festo, if I'm correct, is something called the digital mindset framework that has certain pillars that guide change management with AI. So can you kind of give us an overview of what that framework looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So already for 2 years now, we've been preparing ourselves in
Thanks, Ajay.
especially in North America. We have a program called Digital Mindset, and this Digital Mindset program is an acknowledgement that success long term with AI and automation, Festo, lies in two main dimensions. One is getting the organization ready, getting the mindset ready, getting ourselves to be AI oriented in our DNA, right? And so we have a lot of minds to change. We have a lot of people to convert, let's say, into the future. So one side is about the cultural change and the change management of it and the readiness. The other major dimension in our company is actually adopting and realizing and developing solutions that are real and that have true benefit to the company. If these two things are happening in parallel, you build a momentum that we believe cannot be stopped. So there's the change management initiative, and we have an initiative that focuses on the highest priorities for the company. And this is where we actually build and realize solutions with AI and automation. So that being said, your question was really towards, and what we're talking a lot about today is the first dimension, which is the change management side, which we call digital mindset. And in our digital mindset initiative, we do have four pillars that we work on concurrently in parallel to move the ship, so to speak. And we have a strategy that goes out to 2030 at the moment. So it's not a sprint; it's a journey. But it's a journey that started 2 years ago, recognizing that it takes time to move the ship. So the first component of this digital mindset program is what we call digital literacy training. You have to train people, and here we train them in many different ways. We try to bring people out of what we call old school thinking into the future. And here, one of our most important elements of the training is prompt engineering. And I don't want to intimidate anybody with the word engineering. Uh, we can call it prompting, but I like to use engineering because it's something we can all aspire to. It's quite democratized. Prompt engineering just means using our generative AI tools that everybody knows in our consumer lives, Festo GPT, Claude, Copilot. When you chat with it, you're prompting. But there are certain ways to prompt it in an enterprise level to really harness the power of it beyond what, say, a normal consumer is chatting with the model. So here we want to educate from the CEO down. It's everybody actually to be educated in prompt engineering. That's our focal point for education. Some people will be strong with prompt engineering. Some people are not going to be so close to prompt engineering. But what's important is that everybody in the organization, again, executives down, understand and have an orientation of what it is. Because we believe that if you understand what prompt engineering is, you'll have a better ability to make decisions and adopt and feel a part of proposals and initiatives that come down the line in your respective functions. So prompt engineering is a cornerstone of our training for the digital mindset, amongst other things that we train people for. There's a second part of the digital mindset program is the cross-functional teams, cross-functional innovation teams. And here we want to break down walls. We want our best in this space. We call them digital champs. We have a program called Digital Champs. This is a voluntary program where we say the most willing and the most able to join this club. It's a grassroots club, let's call it, or community within Festo. We call them digital champs, and regardless of what function they're coming from, these digital champs are helping across the enterprise to take their let's say highly skilled orientation towards AI and disseminate it and multiply that ability across the functions and help. And that will, at the same time, number one, educate people, but also help realize solutions. So digital champs is part of how we build cross-functional innovation teams. The third thing that we do in the digital mindset program is we conduct a digital mindset survey. Because if you can't measure what you're trying to do, then what are you doing? So we believe very strongly that we have to measure not necessarily how are people doing in terms of their skills in AI. We want to measure their comfort and their feeling about AI and automation. Are you comfortable with what's coming? Are you ready? Do you feel ready? So we're not measuring skills, we're measuring comfort level and soft factors and those kind of things. So readiness is what we really tried to measure. Our survey has a lot of mathematical elements behind it. It's a very simple 10, 11 question survey. Every 6 months until the year 2030, we do the same questions every 6 months because we want to plot on a graph how we're doing from a scoring perspective. Are we reaching our aspiration of readiness? And this is really, again, taking subjective questions and turning it into metrics and numbers that can be measured in terms of comfort level. And we will plot that every 6 months until 2030. And that's very important to see if we're changing hearts and minds as we go. And then the last piece of the digital mindset program is internal marketing and storytelling. We really we have a team that focuses on communication. We try to flood the zone. Frankly, repetition is king in a industrial automation company and manufacturing environment. We need to flood the zone, and here we do it in many different mediums. We create podcasts, we do short form video, bite sized chunks of information people can um, uh, easily consume day in and day out, and we brand that marketing so that people can really identify when there's a new piece of news, a new interview, a new podcast. They learn about successes in the company. We do believe success breeds success. So we do need to market when good things are happening. So internal marketing and storytelling is another critical function of the digital mindset. So those would be the four dimensions of the digital mindset program.
Great. And so you talked about having cross-functional teams. Are there teams at Festo that are adopting this or have adopted this quicker than others? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, I would say that really it's a shout out to our market management team here, which was really the first to adopt this technology and mindset. Uh, the market intelligence team in the market management team, which does a lot of reporting and so on, uh, they've really embraced it from an intelligence standpoint. They really enhance their reporting, they enhance their analytical capabilities with it, and so the market management team was really the first to champion this and be a model for how we thought about growing the program and scaling it. So it really started grassroots with them, and we learned very fast what worked, what didn't work, what resonated. Learning that IT cannot do it alone, but that it works better together with our business functions, uh, and breaking down those walls and taking the journey together. And I think this is what IT did together with market management to make that to start in a very successful spot and learn to scale it.
Great. And Colin, something I think that we need to touch on kind of at the front end of this conversation as you're talking about adoption is recognizing that some people and companies are resistant to AI and the idea of AI. There's concerns about sharing of proprietary information or the idea that AI is going to take jobs. Can you talk a little bit about those concerns and whether or not you feel they're warranted?
Well, I think anytime anybody has a concern, it's warranted and should be addressed. No concerns should be dismissed. But I do think that there needs to be balance in the discussion. What we try to focus on is growth. We look at a world of constraints. Okay, we look at geopolitical issues. We look at a lack of skills in the marketplace. We look at all kinds of again a world of constraints. And in a world of constraints, what do you have to look at other places to industrialize and maximize your capacity and your efficiencies. And we see this technology as a disruptive technology that enables growth in ways that we couldn't grow in a world of constraints. And when I say a world of constraints, I mean that for everybody, because there's a skill gap in the marketplace, especially in manufacturing or industrial sectors. Um, but we can fill that gap, hopefully support it with artificial intelligence and automation. And so I think if people focus on growth and the opportunities that it presents in that way, and not always focusing on how to make it a cost reduction scheme, where of course it does offer that, there's no question. But I think it needs to be balanced with the growth enabler that it is.
Great, absolutely. So moving along here, obviously part of what we want to talk about today is that power of prompt engineering or prompting when
Mhm.
using AI tools. But before we get into the nitty gritty of that, I do think it's important to discuss what type of tools you're using. Are you using one specific program or is it a mix of tools?
So in Festo, we've analyzed pretty much all the market leaders very early on. And what we've landed on is we have as a Microsoft environment, we have Copilot. So Copilot is one of our pillars. We also have what we call our own homegrown wrapper. Let's call it Festo GPT. Okay, it's called Festo GPT. But Festo GPT is a wrapper that sits on top of multiple models. So you can choose: do I want Claude? Do I want Gemini? Do I want uh, Chat GPT? What is the engine behind Festo GPT? The user can select which intelligence or model they can use behind Festive GPT. And the reason we have that wrapper around those tools is because we also want to ensure that our data remains private and that our data is not being taught to these models in a way that can be compromised. So we are in a holistic way, from a full application perspective, we are big in Copilot, but we also have Festive GPT that reaches into all those other well-known models. But we put a wrapper around it so that we maintain our proprietary information and not teach models unexpectedly with our confidential information.
Awesome. Well, thanks for breaking that down. I'm sure that that was going to be a big question we were going to get. All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of creating efficient prompts, which is the big part of why we're here today. Obviously, you've been doing a lot of work in this area. So, what are some best practices and maybe advice that you can share with us on getting the best out of these tools with that prompt engineering or prompting?
Yeah, well, I love this topic, I'm not a programmer, but I've really drank the Kool-Aid on this, and I really enjoy doing this. And so, listening to best practices from different sources, I've can only say I created my own best practice, what I see works best for me, and I can share that with the group. It's quite basic in its elements actually, and it's just hygiene. I call it prompting hygiene. And if you follow certain basics that I'm going to list now, you will do very well in your prompting. The first thing in a prompt, okay, now I'm talking really black and white prompting. In the prompt, the first thing that you want to do is declare the role. What is the role? So I am the VP of sales looking for sales in Ohio or something like this. So what is your role? You have to declare it. I'm a VP of sales. That gives the LLM, the model, a strong orientation. So you got to define the role. The next thing is give it context. Why are you doing this? Okay, what is the parameters around this inquiry that you're doing, the analysis that you're doing? So giving the model context is very important. And by the way, as I go through these different elements, the more specific you are, the better. It's like let's all go back to kindergarten now and really talk about how we would instruct kindergartners, perhaps, which is everything has to be told in detail. Repetition's okay, but don't leave any stone uncovered. Be very detailed oriented. That an LLM likes detail. So role, context, and then the third thing is what's the objective? You have to tell it in detail. What is the objective of this prompt? Okay. The objective, okay, so I'm the VP of sales. My objective of this prompt is I want to understand everything about the dairy processing industry and all my customers that I can talk to in dairy processing in the Midwest. Okay, that could be an objective. So that's the third element of a good prompt. The fourth one that I use is examples. Give real examples. A prompt loves a reference to an example. So if you can list examples of what you're trying to do, it loves it. And then after examples, output format. How do you want this information to be presented? Do you want it in an outline bullet point format? Do you want it in long text form? Do you want tables? Do you want a combination of those three? You have to tell it in what fashion do you want your output. There are people that love it in a CSV, Excel format, line by line. It really all depends on the user and what your need is, but you should be very explicit in what the output should look like. And then the last element of a good prompt is audit and self-validation. Absolutely tell the model to self-check itself and to ensure that everything is verifiable. I had spent a long time when I started in this journey trying to reduce hallucinations. Hallucinations is the word for a model that's faking the information or at least making you believe it's correct when it's not. And then I landed on one phrase which just really opened the door for me, which is only publicly verifiable information. Just that phrase in itself changed everything. It's like learning to ride a bike. Once you learn it, you know it. Everyone will find their bike. And so for me, the term only verifiable, publicly verifiable information really killed the hallucinations. That is one form of audit and self-validation. So if I could just summarize really quickly the elements of a good prompt, it's the role, the context, the objective, good examples, the output format, and audit and self-validation. These are the elements of a good prompt.
I love the treat it like a kindergartner reference. I mean, I think that's so on the nose. And I mean, it's like people who need to learn from doing. And, I feel like these tools and these GPTs, that's the thing you need to teach them by continually
Yeah, and
experimenting and
and
doing it
Kristen,
that
the
way.
best part is it's so democratized. It's all natural language, so everybody can do this. Everybody can do this. I look at it like when a lot of people in the past were, let's say, intimidated by an iPhone, and now when you pick up an iPhone or an iPad, it's a very intuitive function. People don't think twice about it. It's intuitive. I believe that prompting in the future will become like we treat an iPhone. It's going to be intuitive, and but you have to start there and you have to make the jump.
I don't know that my parents would agree when they pick up an iPhone, it's intuitive, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Or as close as we can get to intuitive.
Absolutely. All right. So obviously, like, we don't love, when things don't work the way we want them to, but it's obviously an important part of the journey. So do you have an example maybe of how you tried a prompt that failed or didn't give you what you're looking for and how you maybe readjusted it and how you would approach that when that happens?
Yeah. Really, don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Don't cut the corners. Accuracy matters. It's all also, if you want people to adopt the solutions, adopt the information that you're getting from your prompting, you need them to trust it. And I learned early on that trust in the results was critical. It doesn't matter if it looks great and you're presenting something that's very like wow oriented, but if it's not trustworthy, it means nothing. And so one of the things I learned early is that you need to be able to show that the data has been verified. Tell it to put references in the prompt, maybe superscript all the facts. Tell it to superscript all its facts and give the reference at the end where the data came from. So referencing the information is something that I learned that builds trust for the prompter themselves and for the consumer of that information. So I would say that that's one big lesson is um, tell the model to tell you where the information is coming from and make it known in the document. So that's one thing. The other thing is really that verification, that publicly verifiable information only. If you can't verify it, don't bring it to me. And I explicitly say that. That was the game changer for me when I was trying to figure out how do I get it to stop hallucinating. The one thing I do have to say though is that these things that I'm talking about may have been even more important in the past months. It's moving so fast, so I have to say past months, because the models are getting so intelligent now, and the technology is moving forward so fast that I like to say it's more forgiving. It's more forgiving. So all these little tips and tricks that I'm giving may or may not be as relevant as these models get more and more intelligent, but I just leave nothing to chance because there's no second chance for first impression. If we're putting things in front of people, if we're automating things, they have to trust it. If you need to trust it, go through the motions of good prompting hygiene.
Absolutely. Verify, verify, verify. I live by that every day in my work.
Yeah.
Um, so let's make this real. Can you walk us through maybe a specific example of how efficient prompts with AI are helping your teams at Festo? So like maybe with your sales team without giving away any trade secrets, obviously.
Yeah.
Sales is always a big area where companies want to optimize.
Yeah, sure. So now we're jumping a little bit from the mindset and change management side, and we're talking now about realizing true solutions and actually building things that we can use from a business process perspective. Um, so one of the things that we're working on or focusing on in sales is lead management. So we want to industrialize the number of leads, our prospecting process. We want to understand what's out there in the world that we don't know from an industry perspective, unknown industries, perhaps emerging industries. customers we don't know or haven't had the chance to be aware of. Uh, and so we want to industrialize our ability to prospect for the sales team. And we also want to make as efficient as possible the channeling of this information that we get from prospecting to the sales team. So that is important because the more you pull in, the more you also need to qualify. So here, AI and automation is working to pull in as much prospecting and information as we can get. But the more information you bring in, you also have to intelligently qualify it because you can't bring in more junk, right? And you don't want to pass junk to the salespeople. So if we industrialize our leads and our prospecting process, we need to also apply AI to the qualifying step of the process. So we're applying AI and automation in those ways and also automating the way we push that information to the sales force. That's a very important part of our initiative, our sales initiative in AI and automation.
And I can see all this, I can hear all the sales managers scribbling as you're talking here. Awesome. So that's sales. What about maybe some other departments? What about on the supply chain or transportation side of things?
Yeah, so in the supply chain side, interesting you mentioned transportation. We are looking on our transportation spend, our cost of transport. Here we're using AI to support our determination of the best route or the best, let's say, cost of transporter, and to help us make efficient decisions about which transporter do we want to use, which carrier, which route, and so on. So here in transportation management, we also have a project going on to optimize our spend in transportation.
And what about the logistics end of things as far as like route planning and things like that? Does that play in as well with the supply chain
Well,
abilities?
I mean, in the supply chain side, in route planning, yes, it's all part of it because the models can look at the history of where our products are going and it can match it up very quickly with what the spend was. And I'd like to say propose because we want to have a human in the loop here to verify um, as well. And that is where we can we use historical data to help the AI model determine the best route and the carrier. Maybe one more interesting thing, by the way, Kristen, on the supply chain side, if I could, in materials management, inventory management, when you talk about optimizing your inventory levels, let's say some inventory managers might have safety stock levels that they're determining, or however they're doing their materials planning, whether it's demand management or to my inventory friends there, they probably understand all this safety stock calculations and so on. AI is a game changer in trying to optimize the appropriate inventory levels. Again, it's about the data that it sees, right? I want to make one important distinction. It's not necessarily what you teach it, right? Because generative AI is about what it sees. In the past, when we talked about machine learning, we had to often teach our models, right? Um, but now you don't really need to teach it. It's been taught. You just need to give it visibility to data. That's a big difference because in the past, companies often had aspirations of implementing AI with machine learning. The ideas were wonderful, but they got stuck on how to teach a model because that took so much time and so much effort. How do you teach something to the level that it's a smart machine? Now you don't have to do that. LLM is generative AI. Generative AI has taken that task and pushed it off to the hyperscalers. The intelligence is there. All you need to do is give it visibility to data, and that's a lot easier to do. So in the scenario I just mentioned to you in inventory management, if you have a generative AI model that has visibility to your sales and your inventory and so on, it can digest that. You don't need to teach it.
Absolutely. And that all makes sense. And the reason I asked about like route planning specifically was obviously the area I cover it is dairy and the supply chain, the cold chain and transportations are such huge pieces of that puzzle. I know dairy processors are always looking for the most optimal solutions for moving their products and maintaining product safety. So that absolutely all tracks. And I have no doubt that many of them are utilizing these tools to make that an optimal situation.
Yeah, and Kristen, if I could just add one more thing to that, I think when we talk about visibility to data in our systems, your ERP system, whatever you're using, SAP or whatever ERP environment you're using, when we talk about visibility to data, it's easy to say, but a lot of our enterprises have a lot of fears about models getting into their data. Okay, I don't have to teach it. That's a wonderful thing, but I also don't want it to see the proprietary gems of our company. We don't want the model to get into our ERP system. Well, that's kind of a mental jump that people have to make. You have to, of course, make it secure. You have to be comfortable that you have all your data privacy measures in place, but you really have to prep the environment to the point where you have the confidence to let the generative AI model read your data. If it can't read and see your data, it can't make these determinations. So that's kind of a comfort level and a let's just say a milestone that companies have to come over to or pass through to let the intelligence do its job. It has to see the info.
Absolutely. And we touched on that earlier as you were talking about, using the shell of a GPT with an internal GPT to kind of balance that.
Yep.
So what about Colin using AI tools when it comes to market intelligence at Festo? Is that an area where you're also utilizing it?
Yeah, I would say that was, as I mentioned before, the market management team here is outstanding. They were first, so they're doing some really cool things with that. In market management, we use again, as you mentioned before, I have to make sure I walk the line between spilling the beans and telling you what we're doing. But something like trade shows, I'm sure a lot of people on this call attend trade shows. Well, what kind of intelligence do you walk into a trade show with? Are the people prepped with probabilities of who's going to walk up to your booth? Do you have icebreaker questions that are relevant to projects they're working on? Do you know what they're working on? So if you can use intelligence, and we've done this, to put in the hands of your people in the uh, trade show, they will be ready with icebreaker questions, understanding the customers with high potential of visiting you and knowing what their needs are. So trade shows is a really big deal in terms of prepping people and using AI and intelligence to really hone in on preparing for a trade show. Um, Apart from that, we're using it more and more in untapped industries. We like to analyze untapped industries, things that maybe we don't know as well, that we use AI to help us understand better. A lot of emerging technologies are out. Sorry, a lot of emerging industries are out there that are becoming very relevant for us. So we are looking very deeply at the opportunities. And when I say this, I don't mean this on a let's say in the cloud kind of level. We are really getting into who are the customers, what are the projects that these customers are doing, what is their budget, what are companies having IPOs where funding is being available. We are talking about really getting into the nitty gritty of in industries that we may not have participated in the past. And then, of course, if you want to do customer analysis, we the team there does also deep dives on customer profiling and customer analysis. So I think these are some of the big areas that the market management team, market intelligence team is doing.
Absolutely. And I hear you on trade shows as someone who attends my fair share of them, making that time valuable with people you're meeting with and making the most of that time on the show floor is so important. So that's a really great tidbit of people can take away of how to utilize this when they're planning for those events. All right, so we've talked about some of your specific teams that are utilizing this and how they are utilizing AI. Let's take it up one level. What about using these tools when it comes to internal reporting? So, like using AI to create summaries and tasks, and how can a good prompt elevate that work?
Well, it has to be trustworthy. We're back to trust. This is the most important thing. It has to be trustworthy. So don't forget the referencing so that you can let people see where the data was pulled from. Okay. But I think that there are two elements. One, comprehensive and trustworthy is one thing, but speed is the other element. If you want to really wow people, if you really want to get people on board, You have to be able to produce these things with speed. Just imagine you're sitting in a workshop and you're discussing potential customers or a market segment or whatever it is that you're discussing. And there comes a question that people are baffled with or they need more info on, and you're just stuck in that workshop or people want to table it. Well, what if a really effective prompt engineer could whip up a very fast analysis of this unknown question or this doubt that you have and give you something very comprehensive and trustworthy right on the spot? So for me, where I've seen huge impact when it comes to reporting is not only how fancy it can convey the information or how trustworthy the information is, but how fast it is. This is really the speed with which it delivers those things is really a component that I think catches the eye of stakeholders in the organization.
So really, I mean, this kind of output, what you're saying is it really can impact that decision-making element for companies.
Yeah, it's in real time, very fast, whether it's on a sales call, whether you're in a workshop, whatever it is, speed is, I think, what moves the needle. Because at some point, you take trustworthiness and data validation as a given. And perhaps you have formats that you have agreed on or that the company is comfortable with when it comes to the output format. But speed is that element that moves the needle, in my opinion.
That efficiency element.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to keep moving along here. We're ticking along on time. So let's talk a little bit bigger picture. A lot of what we've discussed and talked about here today really comes down to those personal productivity elements, like how departments and individuals can be more efficient by utilizing these tools and using them effectively. How can companies view and utilize AI in larger business processes, beyond those individual type functions?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that what we need to do is look at ourselves from a consumer perspective first, because a lot of these new technologies are often adopted in a consumer world before even the enterprise. And we all know that from a consumer perspective or our private lives, we look at ChatGPT when it first came out and Claude and all these other tools that came out thereafter. We look at it from a personal productivity perspective, right? That's kind of where people looked at it first. Can it write me emails, summarize documents, write me a PowerPoint slide deck, and so on. So I think that right now a lot of people look at AI as personal productivity tool. Uh, that's not enough. You have to move past that as an enterprise, and you have to move that past that, not one step but two steps, and I'll explain what that means in my view. So step one is really this realization that you can increase your efficiencies in personal productivity. Again, this is the email summarizations and email writing and all that kind of thing. And then the second stage that I like to see it is workflow. Everyone talks about the term workflow. When I hear workflow, it's a pet peeve of mine. When you tell me workflow, I'm just thinking of a document workflow. Legal sends you a document and it needs to go through certain steps of approval. And so you have some automated system that just moves the document through a workflow, through the steps of the workflow. So for me, when we talk about workflow, that is automation. It can be a clever automation. It can even be an AI driven automation, but that's just the second step. So first is personal productivity. The second one, we talk about workflow. And I really harp on this because people use the word workflow a lot when they talk about adoption and in the enterprise. And I'm not a fan of it because workflow to me implies an intermediary step to where you need to really go, which is business process automation. So personal productivity, document workflow, business process automation. These are different levels of maturity. And the North Star should be business process automation because that's where you start to move the needle and create efficiencies, enable growth. So that's the three steps of maturity that I see that an enterprise needs to work towards. And I think my assumption is that most companies are still somewhere between personal productivity and document workflow because workflows have been around for a long time. They just maybe weren't AI driven. So the word and again, because of that, people have adopted the word workflow, which may be right for most organizations, but I don't love it for where the North Star needs to go. For me, it's the North Star. The third stage of maturity is business process automation. And again, when I say business process automation, I want to be pretty clear that we're not just talking about cost cutting or taking people's jobs. Business process automation also means enabling growth and industrializing capacity in a company to deal in a world of constraints.
So what you're really talking about here is getting into that digital mindset, as we talked about at the beginning. And would you say that in your experience, what you're seeing outside of Festo and maybe some of the companies that you're working with, are they still on that personal productivity track in those individual functions? And what is the, how do they jump tracks? How do they get into that process automation mindset?
Yeah, another great question. I think most companies are still in the personal productivity side. Um, I believe that companies are stuck in a way, not their fault, but a lot of companies are overwhelmed with the information that's out there. They're being told which technology is better than another. They're being told, what model to go with and how to automate this and that. But no one's talking about adoption and how to do it in a pragmatic way and how to start that process. So if you don't know how to bite into this giant apple, so to speak, in an easy way, you don't know where to begin. You don't know what you don't know. So you need, in my view, you do need both initiatives in parallel. You need the digital mindset and you need to start your projects, and they need to work together because you have to change the minds and you have to ready people for what's coming. But you also have to show successes to build momentum. Otherwise, people don't believe in it. And I think that getting those two dimensions, so to speak, going in parallel is what a lot of companies have trouble doing because they're stuck in information overload and they want to jump in right away. You get a lot of disparate tools being used. You have data privacy concerns. So stakeholders are very concerned about can I use this or is it going to compromise our data? So you need to really, you don't want to stunt, uh, the innovation juices in an organization, but you do need to put some governance around it so that you can put people on a common path, everybody pulling the same string from a digital mindset perspective, but also what are the projects that you want to take on that give you the biggest ROI first. And then you have everyone pulling the same strings. You hash out the technologies that you agree on, and you got to be a little brave. You have to be a little brave. Don't be frozen in. I say don't be frozen in data privacy and data security. If you have a lot of confidence in your data privacy, in your data security, then you should be okay to move forward with this. I'll give you one example that I believe that even we sometimes get trapped in, which is, oh, this is on the cloud. I can't use this AI tool. It's on the cloud. That we need to keep this inside. Well, the argument I have there is, well, if you're using Microsoft 365, which almost everybody is now, I have to remind everyone that's on the cloud too. So everything you do is on the cloud. So if Microsoft 365 on the cloud is okay for you as your information hub, email, Teams, all that, why would an AI platform or tool not be okay? I'm not saying go with a fly by night outfit, but if you're using Anthropic or you're using Copilot from Microsoft or you're using ChatGPT, you hope that they have the type of security standards that Microsoft would have. But I think that a lot of people get stuck on fear of data security and privacy, which is absolutely valid. But if you've done your homework and you are strong in data privacy and security, then don't get frozen on the fact that a lot of this stuff is on the cloud and other people are it's going to run through other systems. I think that's a crutch that is used too much.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me into my next question. And I feel like you touched on this throughout this conversation, but just those common mistakes, those common pitfalls. Are there some common mistakes that we haven't maybe touched on yet that you're seeing when companies are just starting to use AI and starting on that AI journey?
I think one of the pitfalls is forgetting about the change management component, the fear part. So we've had instances where we were very excited about processes that we can automate. Again, on the jumping over personal productivity, jumping over document workflow, moving to business process automation. We have ideas about how to grow segments in our company, but at the same time, maybe we didn't have enough of the right conversations with the process owners and the people that were relevant in that process, and we jumped over to the vision very quickly, maybe too early. And here you really need to bring in your stakeholders, uh, and again, exercise that digital mindset program early so that people know what's going on and they have an orientation and they don't believe their jobs are being taken, or you're not getting decisions made out of fear. If people have fear, they're usually not going to tell you we're not adopting this or we're not doing this because it doesn't work. They're probably having some other motivation that's driven out of fear that you're not going to know of. So in the end, you're getting decisions made which are perhaps not transparent or frustrating, but they're not out of logic, they're out of fear. And you don't want to get there. You want to involve the right players early. Sometimes it's hard to address each stakeholder one by one to try to bring them to that point. But that's what the digital mindset program is supposed to do. It's supposed to bring everybody on the boat together so that you don't have to repeat the same conversation over and over, trying to bring people on board, and thereby reducing fear. So I think that if you try to move too fast and you don't accompany your ideation, your business process automation with a digital mindset program, I think you run into resistance for obvious reasons.
There has to be strategy. You can't just throw it at the wall and hope it sticks.
Yep,
Just check,
exactly.
I'm just checking our Q&A here. It doesn't look like we have any questions. Q&A is open. If anyone wants to drop a question in the chat, please feel free. We are starting to hit about the last 10 minutes of our time together. This has been such a great conversation. I'm sure we could talk for another 2 or 3 hours. But since we are starting to get close to the end of our time, Colin, let's maybe start wrapping it up and bring it back full circle. So from your perspective, what truly separates companies that are actually making progress with AI from those that are still stuck?
Yeah, could you repeat that? The sound cut out for a moment. I
Oh,
apologize.
sure, no problem. I was just saying, I want to sort of bring this back full circle and really kind of start bringing this back. But from your perspective, what separates companies that are they're actually making progress with AI versus those that still seem to be stuck?
Yeah, I think the separation are the people that start. And when I say start, it doesn't mean you just start technologically. You need to start digital mindset as well. And I know I'm repeating myself, but you got to start with the digital mindset early. And you have to start with the vision of implementing solutions early. And you do that in concert with each other. And this is the companies that realize this and do this are the ones that are going to move, I think, effectively and fast. So, and the second thing is focus on growth. Focus on how the technology can help you, again, live in a world of constraints and fill the gaps that are out there. So, not as a cost cutting measure, as a threat, but focus on growth. And I think that is a very important mindset. And those are the two things really: focus on growth and look at it as a solution to a world of constraints. And go through that process. Make the jump from personal productivity to workflow, document workflows to business process automation. If you can think of it in those steps, they'll be successful.
We did have a couple of questions come through. There was a question that jumps back to our conversation about utilizing AI for supply chain management. You talked pretty in depth about this, but just any sort of quick hit takeaways on that particular area?
Well, I think inventory management has a tremendous amount, materials planning to be specific, because materials planning yields in the end your inventory levels. So I think that materials planning has a tremendous opportunity with AI. It's impossible for a human being to connect, let's call it sales demand, market demand, with all your inventory levels and look at the history of your sales documents. Putting all those pieces together in companies where the volume is just so tremendous, like Festo, you need intelligence to process all those dots and bring it together to optimize your transportation planning and your inventory management. So I see AI really being very supportive in transportation planning and materials planning. On the production side, of course, AI is going to be very, very important in predictive maintenance and things like that, machining. That is the next future phase. So right now we talk about generative AI as something that helps us in personal productivity, again, document workflow, business process automation. And then if you take it one step further, there's something in the market now they call physical AI. Physical AI, to our manufacturing friends here on the shop floor, talks about all the intelligence around machines. And again, predictive maintenance, optimizing machinery. I think AI has a big place in that area as well.
And we do have another question in that same realm asking about utilizing AI for supplier monitoring and approval. And is give any insights on that particular part?
Supplier monitoring and approval, yeah, absolutely. If you can dream it, it can be done, frankly spoken. I think that the challenge there is if you are working with suppliers on that level, the question is, are you interacting with their systems, the suppliers? Are they comfortable with you pulling information that you're going to use for your AI analysis? So the answer is yes. I'm assuming they're talking about supplier evaluations, things like this. Absolutely. If you can connect dots on the transportation or inventory management side, you can connect disparate dots on the supplier side. The question is, what kind of data are you dealing with? Are you dealing with only your internal data, or are you also counting on your collaborative connected systems with your suppliers? And are they comfortable with you digesting their data and using it in your AI models? That would be the big question there. But absolutely, it could apply.
And then we do have one of our audience members asking, can you just give the 5 good prompt tips again, like the 5 things that make a good prompt?
Yeah, 100%. Number one, role. Define your role. What is the role of that prompt? Are you a VP of sales? Are you a CEO? Are you a salesman? Are you an engineer? The role. That's number one. Number two, give it context. Why are you here talking about this topic with the prompt? Give it some context around the situation. That's number two. Number three, give it the objective. Tell it what you want it to do. Be very clear. Back to basics, back to kindergarten. Tell it what you want it to do. That's the objective. Okay. And then feed it examples. If you have examples, give it. Okay. Then tell it how the output should look. You want a table? You want a bullet point outline? Do you want long form text? Do you want a combination? You got to tell it what the output should look like. Last but not least is the audit and self validation. You have to tell it to self validate. Give me only publicly verifiable information is the one that I love. I use it a lot. That would be the elements of a good prompt.
We are in our last 5 minutes here. So, Colin, we want people obviously to walk away with some practical information. And I think those 5 prompts are going to be the big thing people walk away with. But I want to know, what would you say is one quick win for someone who's just getting started on this AI journey?
The the biggest win that you can have is to understand that it is a journey and that you have to start right away. People talk about a marathon, but marathons take time to ramp up. You don't have time to ramp up. You have to start the journey now in an aggressive way on both dimensions, getting your organization ready, whatever that program means to you. You have to have an initiative that gets the people ready and get them convinced and sold and feel the benefits behind it. At the same time, you do have to realize results. You have to deliver solutions. Otherwise, people stop believing. So I know it's a repeat of what we talked about before, but the biggest takeaway is start your initiative of changing the organization, getting them adopted now. And at the same time, in parallel, not after, but in parallel, start building things that people can really feel.
Yeah. What do they say? That the best time to start was yesterday, but the next best time to start is today.
I like that. Yeah, that's great.
All right. Well, thank you, Colin, so much. I think this was an incredibly practical and thoughtful discussion. And personally, my biggest takeaway today is that meaningful AI impact doesn't necessarily come from some sort of massive implementation. It really starts with that mindset, with experimenting, with starting and improving how your organization approaches those everyday operational processes.
Well, I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here again, Kristen. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I really loved your questions, and hope to see you all soon.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, again, thank you to everyone who's joined us today and participated in this conversation. Before we wrap up, I do want to mention there is another upcoming FPSA webinar Wednesday session that's going to take place next week on May 20th, and that is Cracking the Leadership Code, Connection, Communication, and Collaboration in Action with Generational Spin. It's focused on practical leadership strategies for improving engagement, strengthening communication, and building more connected and collaborative teams. So if today's conversation around mindset and organizational change really resonated with you, I definitely encourage you to join that discussion as well. Again, we appreciate your time and hope today's discussion gave you practical ideas you can begin applying within your organizations. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.